Give us an example of when project management made a big difference in the success.
It would probably be the opposite, which is when has it not been there? Because it's always been part of the success. The thing I'll say is when you have project management, it's at the end of the day, there's this business component, and some of us have heard of it. It's called ROI, right? The fun thing about ROI is it's kind of reversed, right? Because it's the return on the investment, and you have to put the investment in first. The investment is the management of getting it to market, which is the project itself. And if that doesn't make sense, it blows up the R. So it's almost like IOR, which doesn't sound cool, right? Nobody wants to say that because that sounds really tricky. But that's where project management is critical. At the end of the day, it's all about that investment. And if that investment going into it can't be managed to get that output for the return, it's critical.
And so when did you see yourself coming out of technology and driving more toward marketing and then digital using project management?
So if you have a chance to read The Streaming, Sharing, and Stealing, I grew up during that period. So I started very, very, very early on in technology. If you go back to when websites started, using the old iframe, right? When you developed a website within the frame, what was it, Microsoft? Who remembers Microsoft? Front page? Front page, y'all remember that? Yeah, so I started then, and I had the opportunity to kind of grow up in this era. But at the same time, it's not like I'm too far away from when you would click on a website, or first of all, the internet wasn't really available for everyone, but when 14.4, modems were out, and then they went to 28.8, you're like, oh my goodness, this is so fast, right? And then 96K, you're like, oh, this mind blown, right? So I had the opportunity of growing up in that era, and it's, that's when, you could call it marketing, but websites were like, you don't really need a website. I just put something in the yellow pages. But that I was part of that transition between as marketing continued to transition and change. And I think we've all been part of that. What are these things in our pockets called? The smartphones, right? We've all been part of that. So depending on the question, we may go into more of that.
Sure, keep going.
Well, it's funny because the perfect storm, right? And please read this book because it talks about how all these things converge, and I've been in a meeting since 7:30 this morning where we've been talking about our strategy, and we've been talking about at Cricket how all these things come together and what does that mean to us. So there's really, as Jody was saying earlier, there's this reach and this access component that is just changing the landscape, where you no longer can sit and wait for things to happen. Accountability ladder. You can't sit back and wait. You have to find a way to acknowledge reality and move forward. And as a project manager, no matter what field you're in, which is the coolest thing about what is happening today is if you don't look out and see what's going on with the customer journey and all these different facets, if you don't look at businesses and see what's working in other places and understand as a project manager how to, I think Damien or someone earlier, one of the victims earlier said, deliver the best value, then you're sitting back and hoping for the best, which is why some CMOs are struggling. You can't sit back and hold on to what worked, honestly, even a year ago. You've got to look and see how things have changed. And I have this statement I make when I speak at events. It's, customers, us as consumers, we don't change. We're still the same people. Our expectations have changed. And if you go back to Maslow's hierarchy, that's what we're all managing against. And so, thinking about that again, growing up when, I was joking the other day with some of my friends on social media, was remember when you had to talk to your girlfriend, this thing was connected in the kitchen, right, as this phone? And what happened, right, we wanted privacy, so guess what, that cord got longer. It got longer, and it got longer, and it got longer, and eventually we had that mobile phone, or cordless phone. But you couldn't vacuum at the same time, or no one could vacuum, because then you couldn't understand anyone, right? But our expectations as consumers have changed, and there goes the business that have to change. The businesses have to keep up with consumers, and it takes excellent project management at this point in order to do that. You've got to get to market very quickly.
When you came to Cricket from FedEx, what was the biggest hurdle you had to overcome to drive great project management in digital?
Well, I had an in-between there. So I went from FedEx to Pizza Hut. So I worked in Dallas at the Pizza Hut headquarters. I was responsible for digital there. And, one of the things that, coming out of a business that is very business focused to consumer focused, the speed continues to change very rapidly. But the definition of success has to it has to stay there. And I think one of the things that you see a lot in business to business, it's all about the result, all about the result, all about the result. Whereas consumer focus starts to get lost on the result and just says, well, we just want to be to market, to respond and answer. And I think that's that balance of IT and marketing, which is, yes, you want to answer, but you want to answer with the right investment, keeping things on track, keeping the project controlled, but not getting away from, as a marketing project manager, at the end of the day, you are creating intellectual property. You are creating, capital investment in the sense of this is something that the business hopes to continue to get value out of, which is sometimes a little different than traditional projects that have a very short life cycle in market. So, making that transition, that shift, is bringing the right rigor and balance of, yes, we want to do this, we want to do it the right way, but that doesn't mean we get to do whatever we want as a creative organization, as an organization focused on the customer experience. Because at the end of the day, there's this thing, these people in finance that keep us very focused on budget. So, you want to have their trust.
Speaking of pizza, and Darrell did put me onto the book. It was the streaming, sharing, and stealing. Fantastic book. Have you read Big Lies?
I have not done Big Lies.
Oh, do you know that people who order a pizza online will spend more money because they will order more fattening items on their pizza? They're a little bit intimidated and embarrassed in person and over the phone.
Did I tell you I worked at Pizza Hut?
Yes. Did you know that?
Yeah, it's really interesting. That's the whole value of digital from that lens, which is the average AOV, right? Acronyms, marketing people, right? The average order value is higher, and you get to create some stickiness with the customer. But, part of my transition at Pizza Hut was stepping into an environment where they said, we want to go from this is how we were represented in digital to this new vision. And we had this outside agency managing it, no internal project management, the former CEO, CMO, so two formers before, right? Short life cycle. They were just saying, hey, I just want to, I want to make it look however I want. And they lost connection with the customer. So I had to take my strategy, now we got to go do this project management, understand how to create valuable chunks to turn it around. So in my short period there, we turned it around. I don't want to get myself in trouble, but we made it very, very successful and delivered more results. But it took the rigor and the focus to say, step back and say, stop, right? Let's stop and do the right thing. But yeah, it then turned in the right value. But creating that value through one channel and then being able to repeat that success takes a strong schedule, a lot of planning, and understand what worked well and what didn't work.
So are you an analytics buff or a testing buff?
Tough question. So one of the things that I will tell you all, the things I did at Pizza Hut is I enabled this, FedEx first of all. I have my own SQL Server database, right? So I'm this kind of unicorn as you talked about. You have to create data and live by understanding what's happening. The testing buff element of it is I utilize the concept that I've created in my mind, at least, of how data works and how to collect it. So if you ever go to a Pizza Hut website, you have an experience what everybody sees from a national perspective, but Pizza Hut's very regional, localized. So I created the ability to run multiple tests in markets, so it's still there. Once you localize, i.e. put in your zip code, Pizza Hut can put whatever dynamic content, everything from a different banner. You'll see three things still like it today. A header, and then what we call a hero and two sidekicks. And those sidekicks then will enable, Pizza Hut can control that to say, okay, we want this at the top first, or you know what, that's not working, let's put this on the bottom right. That's not working, let's put this on the left. And we would literally do tests all the time, switching things back and forth just to see what works the best. We did that digitally. We also would do that in an email. So what you would have is we'd send an email out to millions of people throughout the day, depending on what's working in the click-through rate. We would actually change the content of the email because it's all HTML based, so we control the images. So we could do all this different things as you are a consumer, you don't even know, but if you don't click on something, guess what? We're going to change it out, as well as all of our day part search engine marketing and display advertising. So all of that is based on time of day, because at the end of the day, it's all about the consumer and what the consumer's doing, what's working for the consumer and what's not working for the consumer. Because we don't sit always and focus on one thing at a time. We're probably ordering pizza and trying to either calm kids down, talking to your spouse, like, what do you want, right? We're doing all these things, and you have to design that world around that person and manage things in a you have to be very close to the data to do it.
Darrell, tell us about your favorite project manager ever.
Ooh, so my favorite project manager, I work with her at Cricket. She started out as a project manager. Communication was her best thing. I mean, this still is. And she came in, helped us turn some things we were behind on around very quickly and adapted to the environment. Since then, 3 years ago.
Can you tell us about her communication? Like, what made it so good?
So she, we got into a point where we actually went old school. We went stickies on a whiteboard old school. And, so forgive me if I start talking a little bit. So the WBS part of it, that work breakdown schedule and doing the decomposition, we broke it down. Like, what do we need to do, managing the timeline along the way, keeping all the team up front, having those meetings, walking around, making sure that people are engaged, bringing me in when I needed to be brought in. That was key. And, making sure that we continued to move the work forward was absolutely great. And then coming back and stepping back and saying, all right, postmortem, what worked, what didn't work, and making sure that we continuously adjusted. That was great.
When you say what didn't work, are you asking what didn't work for the company or what didn't work for what you were responsible for?
Well, she would do it for what's not working for the team. Again, we manage a lot of creatives. So she would come back and look at the team and say, what can we do to get better to make sure that we are moving things forward? And making sure, use the term from Scrum, the velocity was where we needed to be.
Worst project manager you had to work with?
I can't mention the place or the name. But not holding people accountable. That was a big one. It's not acceptable to let people change their mind and throw the schedule off. It's not, and that's my opinion, because at the end of the day, again, we talked about this thing called investment. And that investment continues to change, iron triangle, right? Triple constraint. It's something you should never, ever lose touch of, because it's an easy way of saying, if we do this, you take the hit on one of these. Circle two, pick which one you want to pay more or invest more or take the hit on. So, at the end of the day, that's the worst project manager could not communicate and keep people there.
Do you think that was driven by a desire to be diplomatic or just a lack of skill?
Lack of skill.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I do want to say, so the best project manager, I did want to finish that part out. She then eventually, moved to an elevated role within project management, and just as of last week, I promoted her to associate director over the organization. So she is doing fantastic.
Yay! Yeah. That's fantastic. Darrell, you look out at all these extremely smart people who have some phenomenal skills. What advice would you give them to venture into marketing? Have you seen that done successfully from IT to marketing?
Yeah, we've had a few people on our team that are from traditional IT organizations. I think one of the things that you do is you kind of talked about it earlier. How do you bring your perspective, your skill, and how does it benefit this organization? What I would say is, don't rely on that organization to figure it out, because you may not be sitting in front of interviewing, working with an organization that can figure it out. Let you bring that to the table. You have to do that work. You have to invest that time to say, what am I doing? What have I seen that has similarities to this industry, to this business? And how can I add, again, I can't remember his name earlier, how do I add that value, to help the business seek that value? That's the most important thing. That's key.
Millennials sometimes get a bad rap because it's said that it's always about them. And I don't see many millennials except for our dear, very smart Elle here. But it seems to me that role of project manager means that it's never about you. Is that safe to say?
Well, I have a different perspective. She told me it was okay to say that. So I'll ask the question, and maybe someone, a few people raise their hand. And what's the difference between a group of high-performing individuals and a high-performing team? Anyone want to take a stab?
The high-performing team will actually accomplish something for the organization.
Really close. I want it very specifically. There's a piece in there that I want called out, just to read right there.
Did you say culture?
Culture could be the same.
Synergy?
Synergy is 1 + 1 = 2, right? That can be the same.
For project management.
Close. So I'll answer the question and relieve everyone from my torture. At the end of the day, you can have a high-performing group of individuals, but a team is all seeking the same goal. There is no I'm important. It is a role and responsibility. And I communicate this to, I have trouble saying my team, it's our team that I work with. Everybody has roles, no one is above the other person, but you have to respect the role and the responsibilities of the other people. And that's key for me. It's at the end of the day, don't put yourself or anyone above the team, because similar to the project, at the end of the day, we're all wearing this on our backs. The goal of the project is to deliver this, right? That's what the goal is. It's not for, pick a name, insert name here to look the best as that project is being delivered, because that is agnostic to, that doesn't matter, right? Like, who cares about that? But that's my perspective, is I'm all about the team.
Okay, so it's not playing to the director.
Oh, no.
It's playing to the team.
Absolutely.
Okay, very good, very good. What other advice, if you had to give 3 takeaways for this group of PMPs who want to venture into marketing, what sage advice would you give them?
Starting out, do your homework, right? That's key. Don't sit and wait. That'd probably be the first thing. I think the communication is still going to be one of those things that's key, because as we know, communication will tear a project down, communication will tear a team down, communication will tear an organization down. And I guess the last one is continue to inspire and motivate people. That's how you get the best out of them. That's how you get the best out of your communications with people, your engagement with people. It's about inspiration and motivation. I say this also as part of the team. We're all humans. That's the most important thing that we need to take away. And as humans, we got a ton of stuff going on, whether it's inside work, outside work, but keeping focused on the team is key. And as the project manager, you have to be that glue. You have to be that it that keeps it together as a team. So those would probably be my takeaways.
Fantastic. What is homework? When you say do your homework, is it learning a little bit about marketing automation tools and demoing them? Is it about the company? What is the homework?
I think that's a great question. It's I can't tell somebody what they need to go research before, but yes, the answer is yes to all of those, because depending on the environment and where you want to go, I tell the team, I try not to prescribe, I try to direct, and that direction is really to say, you have to determine what is it for you, what do you need to learn, and even ask the question, what do I not know? It's okay, right? What don't I know? And sometimes just asking that question, I'm a very visual person, so when you look at the marketing automation, I kid you not, I had that 2011, 2012, and then it kind of started getting crazy. I had those on slides, because at the end of the day, there's this spider web of things. The world there's tons of stuff, and I mean, we all sat through, or majority of us sat through that 200 question, how many was it, 4 hours or something like that, something crazy like that. It's kind of one of those things where all these things are so connected, tons of content, tons of information. But I had a coach. I played sports in college, and I had a coach that used to say, I'm going to do his voice, do it with a purpose, right? Which is do it with a purpose. And I always tell people, don't go into training to say you accomplished training. Because what's the purpose of that? If you're sitting in front of someone and says, hey, I have my PMP, great. Or I have the ability to bring in a framework that will allow you to get the most out of your business. That's why I went into this field, so that I could help other companies get the value out of the business. That's what I would say is do your research and do it with a purpose. Do everything you do with a purpose. Know what you want to get out of it before you go into it, and then learn stuff along the way.
Great advice, Darrell. Questions for Darrell?
I have two. One and a follow-up. My first question is,
Here, you can run it around.
My first question is, it sounds like you guys are waterfall at Cricket from what you're saying, the terms that are using. Are you moving toward an agile framework, or are you guys completely waterfall?
We're, what do we call it? Wagile, something like that, right? Today we're more waterfall than what we want to be, and in my opinion, what we should be. We have to figure out, call it agile in a traditional sense. Jody and I talked about this, where, we don't necessarily want to do the strict. It's got to be the right thing for our environment. So, I'll call, yes, we should be in agile, but I think we should have the ability to get to market much faster than what we do.
All right, and then I just wanted you to repeat the name of the book that you recommended.
Oh, I got a lot of them, but Streaming, Sharing, and Stealing.
Streaming, Sharing, and Stealing.
Yes,
okay,
it is great.
Thank you.
And anything Malcolm Gladwell, amazing. And Outliers, what is it, the story of success? Read it, because it really tells you there's peel back the onion, there's some secrets behind it, and it's all about some of the things that we do and we can control. So love it.
Another question. I thought you said the name of the book was Screaming.
Oh, it can
be. Thank you so much for the presentation. On the technology side, you mentioned at Pizza Hut that you guys had a kind of dynamically changing email that was sent out. Is that a tool that you built in-house? And do you think about building similar tools and monetizing those strategies like the presenter mentioned earlier?
It was actually kind of it's our strategy we executed through an agency. So we didn't build the tool ourselves, but there's always that opportunity if you can create value and create some ease for whomever, right? Insert either customer, consumer segment, or insert business, then there's always value in doing that.
Another question? Okay.
Y'all know it's hot outside. You can ask me.
Okay, don't be shy. Don't be shy.
she just said, are you hiring?
Are you hiring?
So we actually just, as of 2 or 3 weeks ago, just hired our last open headcount. But we're always looking at, opportunities to grow and convince our leadership team to, I think I used a term, I sent a text to my leader earlier, to put people in a uninterruptible kind of position where they are completely focused, because Cricket is very lean. So we have tons of span of control, which is a good thing. Also, just keeps you pretty busy.
And I'm always telling Darrell that he can use expert contractors too.
Absolutely.
Okay, we have another question.
One of your suggestions was to motivate your team, and I'm just curious, like some good examples of how you did that.
For me, motivation is kind of understanding what makes people kind of tick, right? What is that thing? Motivation, I also like to say inspiring, because that's really getting people to do, quite honestly, what they may not have the internal will to do or want to do. Or how do you get people to do things that to follow you without even asking them to follow you? the hard thing is for me to say, what's that, how does that conversation go and what is the interaction? I kind of think back again, us as humans, like what are we thinking about? What are we faced with? And how do you create use the term, a healthy challenge that really just makes people say, you know what, I can do better. Or you know what, I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of this greatness that's all coming about. That's what I look to do. And sometimes challenging people in a way that just kind of makes them sit back and think like, wow, wait, hold on, maybe I'm making this job, easier than what it has. And that's a conversation honestly I've had with some people is, I think you probably could come in and you get to define the intensity. The way I say it in the software is you get to define the intensity of this role. It's up to you to determine what you get out of it. And that's day in, day out. I can sit here and tell you things, but to be honest with you, I hired every single person on our team because of the greatness that they bring. And that's the opportunity that everyone is sitting in, is to be able to influence something and impact something more than beyond what they are today. So I think the inspiration is depending on the situation, the audience, the temperature. I mean, there's all these things that kind of go. You just have to use that emotional kind of thermometer. But just know that sometimes it ain't gonna work, right? And you learn from that, and you say, you know what, that didn't work. Try something else different next time.
We're not going to hold you guys too much longer, but I did want to make a comment, as this is one of our career kind of concentration months. I think a lot of people are looking to get into project management, and they only see software as an option, or they see it limited to technology. And I think this discussion kind of gives us another way to think about it. And I would like to ask the group here, if you're in project management, if you would raise your hand if you're doing it in a non-technology or software environment. That's awesome. That is awesome. And that just shows how wonderful what we're learning in project management is. And I just really look forward to the future with project management. Let's thank our guests. Thank you.